Hello everyone, you are very welcome to our information session on our LLM in International and Comparative Disability Law and Policy. My name is Lisa Doran and I work in student recruitment in the School of Law. And the format of today's session is a short presentation about our LLM in International Comparative Disability Law and Policy programme. And at the end of the presentation, my colleague, Dr. Janos, will present a mini taster lecture on the right to love. And then after that, I will introduce a recent graduate of ours, Sandra Edam, who completed the LLM in International and Comparative Disability Law and Policy course last year. And then we will also take any questions that you have towards the end of the talk. So thanks very much. And I will now pass you over to Dr. Janos.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome to our open day today. I am János Fiala-Butera. I'm a lecturer at the Center for Disability Law and Policy, and I'm also the program director of our LLM program. So let me tell you today about a bit about our center and then the program, who are the students in our program, what they do after they finish our program, and what we teach, how we teach it. So the Center for Disability Law and Policy was established at the NUIG School of Law to research the international and national standards on human rights and to support the implementation of disability rights and research disability reform across Europe and the world. The impetus for establishing the center was the adoption of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which is one of the newest UN human rights treaties. Our main focus is standards under the CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, but that's not the only thing we deal with. We are interested in other human rights standards. For example, I have been a practicing attorney before the European Court of Human Rights, so one of my main focuses is the European Convention on Human Rights, but various others come up in our research and in our teaching. So the center is kind of a center for excellence in terms of disability rights in the world. There aren't many centers like this in other universities which focus solely on disability human rights. We are engaged in many international and European research networks, and we have a variety of partners, research bodies, civil society organizations, and international organizations. There are many we cooperate with. Some of our graduates are then later working for these organizations, and we are engaged in common activities, in research projects with these organizations. So the center is very much settled into the international networks around disability rights and disability advocacy. Can we go to the next slide, please? So how does the program look like? The center is responsible for research and teaching, and the LLM program is our flagship program. We do have PhD students as well, and research LLMs also can participate in the program's activities. But our biggest cohort of students studies in the LLM and International and Comparative Disability Law and Policy. It's quite a unique program in the world. There aren't many like this. Some would say it's the only of this kind, because we focus specifically on international human rights standards relevant for persons with disabilities. So we deal with the international standards and the process of law reform in the field of disability rights. We cover both foundational aspects, philosophical, theoretical aspects of disability rights, what disability means in current societies. Then we cover a lot of the relevant international law. As I said, the main focus is the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, but not only that, we deal with other human rights standards as well, European Convention on Human Rights, other UN treaties like the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, European Social Charter, and we look at domestic laws, primarily Irish law, but also laws of other countries, domestic practice, domestic policy and practice as well. So we have quite a wide way of looking at disability rights. Our students mostly primarily have law degrees. They are the biggest group of students. Some have already practiced in disability rights or other areas of law. But we have other students as well who have worked in public administration, in disability support, for example, and others who have been disability activists or human rights advocates, who also constitute an important group of our students. So we have quite a bit of diversity in our student body, which is a great resource for our teaching as well. Our teaching is quite interactive. These are not only frontal lectures, but we are very much interested in the experience students bring to our class discussions. Anybody can apply to the program who has some experience with disability advocacy, but we will talk about the application process later. Let's look at the question of why somebody should study in our program. As I said, the program is quite unique, and it is recognized globally as a center for excellence in teaching around disability rights. As a result, we have very good access to global experts and networks who are coming to teach in our program. So we have focus modules where global experts from all around the world come to teach and share their experience about disability rights implementation in Africa or Asia or Latin America and various European countries. And they focus on current, most important topics of disability rights. So I would say the program is very current in its approach. You have, as a student, an opportunity to engage with these experts, not only through classroom experience, but also through the other programs, the other activities the program offers. We have a very prestigious internship with the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, based in Geneva. 2 students are selected each year based on academic results and an application process, who could go to a paid internship to Geneva and work for the UN CRPD committee. In the past, some of these students worked for the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities at the UN. The last few years, it has been the UN CRPD committee. Our last 2 years were quite hectic, as you can imagine, because of the pandemic. So we had to shift to online teaching. And that means the internship was also online. So students unfortunately missed the real life Geneva experience, but the internship still took place, and Sandra, our graduate, will talk about her experience later because she also did the internship. The internship is not the only opportunity to be engaged in these networks. The center has a lot of research projects which contribute to real life impact on disability rights implementation. So to mention a few, currently we are running a project on reproductive justice in Ireland, which is looking at various aspects of reproductive rights of persons with disabilities, from involuntary fertilization to access to contraceptives, abortion, up to parenting, and some students are involved in this research project, which has direct policy guidance or direct policy recommendations for the Irish state. Another project is there, Disability Advocacy Research in Europe, which established a network of 14 PhD students across Europe who are researching various aspects of disability rights advocacy and implementation of the UN CRPD. And this project itself has very interesting events, some conferences and workshops in which our LLM students can also be involved. The center occasionally does research work for Irish governmental bodies and the UN CRPD committee, in which our LLM students can be involved. Last year, for example, we did a very large research for the UN CRPD committee on access to justice, which involved reviewing policy and practice from various countries of the world. So students who had interest and experience in that work could be involved. Currently, we are working on a large project. We are developing the guidelines on independent living for the UN CRPD committee. And again, some of our current students are involved in that work. So depending on your interest, there are excellent opportunities provided by the center, which can also boost your experience and credentials when you enter the job market. Being able to show that you have already worked on policy advice to the UN CRPD committee, it's a great asset, I think. So the program provides excellent career prospects in this way. Being a student also allows you access to some of our other events, which are quite expensive otherwise. For example, we run a summer school every year. Last year, we did it online for the first time because of the pandemic. The idea is that this year we will have it live. Last year, our topic was right to culture and sports of persons with disabilities. We haven't decided on a topic for next year. This is quite an expensive summer school for which a lot of people come from all around the world, both as lecturers and as participants. As students, you will have access to this program for free. You can also be involved in school, but you can just attend as a participant. There are also other events and programs organized by the school. We have mini conferences, workshops. 2 years ago, we facilitated the establishment of the Irish Disability Caucus. And some of our LLM students attended these. Last but not least, the students benefit a lot from each other's presence. We have a very interdisciplinary and international student cohort. So as I said, lawyers are probably the largest group, but they are not the majority in the program. We have a lot of disability rights advocates from across the world, from Ireland and other countries. And this is a great opportunity to make contacts in this field. If you're interested in working later in disability rights, our program is an excellent way to meet some of the future leaders in this field. And with that, let's look at what are the career paths our students are taking after finishing our program. Our program is our program has a strong focus on academic skills, and some of our students decide to stay in Galway and do a PhD or do PhDs elsewhere and enter academia as lecturers or researchers. But also a large number were legal practitioners before, and they want to go back to legal practice or start legal practice with some focus on disability rights. By the way, before coming to teach here, I used to be a human rights attorney practicing in the area of disability rights. And when I did my law degree, I wish such a program like this existed before, because that would give me the skills and the knowledge I need to be a successful disability rights attorney. It didn't exist, and now I'm very happy to to tell other lawyers who are interested in disability that even if you have a lot of practice in this area, doing an LLM with us really equips you to do human rights work on behalf of persons with disabilities in various forms. Some of our students join the policy field. They become policy makers or consultants for governments or human rights bodies. Disability policy is an ever-expanding field. There is a lot of attention given to it now, and there is always a need for people who have theoretical and practical experience of disability rights and disability policy and international disability human rights standards. So a lot of our students who are not interested that much in the legal aspect of it do join the policy field or politics, some of them, or become consultants or members in international organizations or national human rights commissions, and some work for funders, donors active in the field of disability. To give you a few examples, some of our graduates include Likando Kalaluka, who is the Attorney General of Zambia, Alberto Vasquez, who is a research coordinator for the UN Special Rapporteur on Disability Rights, or Elizabeth Kamundia, who works at the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights. But we have others who work for international organizations like the Validity Foundation, Mental Disability Advocacy Center, or the International Disability Alliance, or the European Network for Independent Living, and other similar organizations, or their national human rights bodies or disability ministries. We provide career support to our students, which is provided by the university with professional workshops concentrating on student CVs and interview skills. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So how the program is structured, I mentioned that we shifted to online teaching. We shifted to online teaching the last 2 years because of the pandemic. But the plan is that we will go back to in-class teaching from next year. Let's hope that the pandemic doesn't get worse. Our students have to collect 90 credits throughout the year. 30 of those is the dissertation, so they have to write a dissertation at the end of the year, and that leaves 60 credits for modules, so courses. 30 in semester 1, 30 in semester 2. Basically, that's how it is divided. This is if you do the program full time. There is an option for part-time when this is all divided into 2 years. And in that case, students would do 30 credits the first year, 30 credits the second year, plus the dissertation. We only have one mandatory module in the first semester, which is Foundational Theoretical Framework in Disability Law and Policy, which covers the theoretical foundational aspects of disability rights. And then you have to select optional modules, mental health law and policy, legal capacity law and policy, inclusive education, advocacy and access to justice, and so on. You also have an option of choosing one module per semester from other LLM programs of the School of Law. So, for example, the Irish Centre for Human Rights has an LLM in international human rights law. You can choose something from that or from the general LLM program. As I mentioned, an important part of our teaching is guest lectures. So some of our modules are especially heavy on guest lectures. For example, regional disability law and policy has experts from various countries around the world who work on disability advocacy in their respective countries, or their respective systems. We have them lecturing on that in the module. Contemporary challenges in disability law and policy is a module which changes every year. We focus on the most current issues in international disability rights advocacy, and that module also typically has guest lecturers by practitioners who work in that area. I don't want to talk more about the specific modules, but I will be very happy to answer questions later if you're interested in specific aspects about how we teach. Let me just mention one module here, which is the clinic. The clinic is, as you might know, is a specific module where you provide real-life legal advice to clients, Irish clients. It involves a training first on some of the most important aspects of the area which you will cover, and then you can practice by providing real-life advice, to clients. Some say it's quite a lot of work, but they also enjoyed it very much when they did the clinic. So this is also something which sets us apart from some of the theoretical programs. Here you can practice some of the skills, put them into action. And the clinic sometimes also involves research for international bodies and these kind of similar, very practice-oriented activities. That would be all from me. And I'm sure you're interested in how you can apply to the program and what kind of scholarship opportunities are there for you. I'm going to hand over to Lisa, who will talk about those issues.
Brilliant, thank you. First of all, I will tell you a little bit about how to make an application. So you can make an application online by visiting nuigalway.ie /apply. Now the URL is a little bit longer there, but I'll type it into the chat. In terms of entry requirements, applicants must hold a second-class honours degree in law or an interdisciplinary degree in which law was a major component. And then in exceptional circumstances, applicants who do not hold a degree in law or a degree of less than a 2-1, they may be considered where they have relevant professional experience in law or disability rights. In terms of country-specific entry requirements, you can find them on the international website, and I can pop the link into the chat shortly so you can have a look at those. And with regards to closing date, there is no closing date for our LLM programs. Offers are issued on a continuous basis. So once you apply, you normally find out within a few working days whether or not you have been accepted onto the program. And because offers are issued on a continuous basis, we encourage candidates to apply as early as possible. Finally, moving on to scholarships, the university offers a taught postgraduate scholarship worth €1,500 for EU students. You can apply if you've been accepted into a full-time taught course at NUI Galway and have attained a first-class honours level 8 degree. And then we also have a range of scholarships for international students, including merit-based scholarships, country-specific scholarships, and the Government of Ireland scholarships. And for more information about our scholarships, you can visit nuigalway.ie /postgraduate_scholarships. And then I would now like to pass you over to Janos again, who will deliver a mini taster lecture on the right to love.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm going to talk about the right to love, which maybe is a concept which you have not heard about before. And the purpose here is really just to give you an insight about our approach to teaching. I heard students saying that law is boring. They basically teach you what's in the law books, but that's definitely not what we do at the CDLP. Our LLM is basically focused on a critical assessment of the law as it applies to persons with disabilities. And that includes also a critical assessment of international human rights standards. So let me show you what I mean. You might have heard that persons with disabilities, especially persons with intellectual disabilities, are forbidden in some countries to marry and to enter sexual relationships. the law prohibits it based on certain criteria, and people can be even prosecuted. For example, for rape, if they engage in a sexual relationship with a person with intellectual disability, because those countries would claim that they cannot give informed consent. And this was the practice, or has been the practice, in Ireland, which had a very outdated legislation in the area, the Marriage of Lunatics Act of 1811, which declared that persons of unsound mind cannot marry. It didn't define further who persons of unsound mind were. But there was another legislation, the Lunacy Regulation Ireland Act of 1871, which defined persons of unsound mind, who were basically persons with intellectual disabilities who couldn't make decisions. If the court found that they are persons of unsound mind, they could be declared wards of court. And that meant that from then on, all their decisions were made by other persons. So it's a system of guardianship, which still exists in Ireland. So it's a 150-odd system where persons can be declared wards of court, and from then somebody else makes decisions for them. And because the term was the same as in the Marriage of Lunatics Act, courts could declare that if somebody is a ward of court, they simply cannot marry. Nobody really questioned the reasons behind prohibiting persons with disabilities from marrying until 2 years ago, a person who we know as A, who was a man with an intellectual disability, decided to marry his sweetheart, who we know as F. We don't know their full names. The story was that A came from quite a well-off family. His parents died. His father died first, and then later his mother died, I think in 2015. And he inherited a lot of property, which was placed in a discretionary trust. So he didn't have direct access to it, but he was the beneficiary of the trust. He moved to a disability residential service, where he developed a romantic relationship to a woman. They had known each other before, but they were together a lot in the service, and they decided that they want to get married. F's family was very supportive of the relationship, so they already planned the day of the wedding. But just before that day, A's family intervened, and they initiated a court proceeding to declare him a ward of court, to place him on the wardship. And they asked for an injunction against the wedding. And the Irish High Court issued the injunction, so it prohibited the wedding from going forward. What was the reason? A's brother and sister got concerned. They said A doesn't really understand what marriage is about and what kind of obligations it involves, and what kind of impact it might have on his inheritance and property. And they were suspecting that F and F's family could be a source of financial abuse for A. So they want only the best for him, and they want to prohibit him from getting married. And the way for them to do that was to initiate the wardship proceedings. So they wanted to place A under wardship. So the High Court asked for medical advice, for medical evidence about A's capacity, and it was a mixed evidence. The doctor thought that A perhaps doesn't have capacity to make financial decisions. He doesn't really understand the extent of his wealth and how to use it properly, how much things cost, how to make difficult financial decisions. So the medical doctor had some concerns there. However, the doctor also tested A for his understanding of marriage. And it turned out, in the doctor's opinion, A has quite a good understanding of what marriage entails. And he could justify quite well why he thinks him and F should live together in a loving relationship and what that would mean for them. So the doctor testified that in terms of marriage, A might have capacity. In terms of finances, maybe not. And this is what he returned back to the High Court. In the meanwhile, A applied to the Court of Appeal, asking for a protective cost order. The meaning of this is that when you're placed on the wardship, all the legal costs and all the costs of your guardians come from your assets, which is adding insult to injury, basically. So here, A was not only prohibited from getting married and being placed on the wardship, but he was also paying for it. He was paying the lawyers of the other side. And for the help of his lawyers, he applied to the Court of Appeal and asked that to be stopped. There are protective cost orders, in which case, even if the party loses the case, he or she is not expected to cover the other party's costs. In the case, this is the court proceeding is very important for making a general precedent. Irish courts rarely use this order, but we have examples. For example, in the litigation against Facebook, they did that. And in this case, the Court of Appeal allowed his appeal. It paused the wardship proceedings for that time, so they were not ongoing, and decided that, yes, it's really in the interest of Ireland, the whole country, to know what is the reason behind these prohibitions, 200-year-old prohibitions, and A should be able to challenge the constitutionality of these prohibitions without the fear of being asked to pay for the legal fees of the other side if he happens to lose. And the Irish Human Rights and Equality Centre were also granted leave to submit an amicus brief. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So why is this proceeding so interesting? A lawyer would tell you what the law is, and the Marriage of Lunatics Act really did apply at that time. So did the Lunacy Act of 1871. So A's family was in the right to initiate these proceedings, and the court could decide based on medical evidence whether A should be prohibited from marrying. But in the course, we would look at the law itself and how it complies with international human rights requirements, and what do those even tell us about the ability and the right of persons with disabilities to get married? What is even the reason for inquiring into somebody's ability to choose the right life partner? You have to recognize the discriminatory aspect of this law. Choosing a life partner is really not a rational decision. Many people, I think, would have difficulty justifying why the person they are choosing is the right for them. And many families object to their family member's choice of a life partner, but we don't prohibit, legally at least, others from getting married. How are persons with disabilities different? And again, here we go back to the issue of capacity. But is it really their best interest which the law is upholding here? And if it does it do in the right way? So we could contrast this with international rights standards, which have a different understanding of what supporting people requires. Specifically, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities would recognize that some people do have or might have difficulties in making difficult decisions in life, but that doesn't mean you can prohibit them from making those decisions. It means they require support. So if Ireland has concern about some people not making the right decisions because of their disability, it could provide support to them to make those decisions in a competent way. And that is exactly what the Assisted Decision-Making Capacity Act of 2015 is introducing to the Irish system, but this law hasn't been commenced yet. It will commence next year, hopefully. So we will see in practice how it works. So let me go back to this case. A here was contesting the constitutionality of the Marriage of Lunatics Act, and he still is because the case is not over. And he's saying that it's incompatible with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the European Convention on Human Rights. In the meanwhile, without any fanfare, almost in secrecy, the Minister for Children, Disability, Family and Integration decided to commence one part of the Assisted Decision-Making Act, which concerned the right to marry, and that repealed the Marriage of Lunatics Act. We suspect that this was because of this court case. Perhaps it's leading to a settlement, and this was one of the conditions of the settlement, or the government basically just wanted to escape embarrassment by one of the laws being declared unconstitutional. This is where the case stands at the moment. We don't know how it will develop, but in the class we would look at some of the foundational questions about what could be even the basis for interfering with somebody's choices of whom to marry or whom to have a relationship with. Does it have any basis in theory, and how it applies to persons with intellectual disabilities who might have difficulties making some decisions? Could they be supported? And how would a good system look like, for example, in Ireland, which complies with international requirements, which sometimes themselves can be contradictory? So the UN Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights might say different things about this issue. In fact, it does. And we would look at all these sources, all these various obligations, all the theoretical discussions, and discuss together in the class what would make sense the most, what would be a good, sound legal solution for this area to guarantee the right to love for all persons with disabilities. We are usually not looking at easy questions, but complicated questions which have good arguments on both sides. And our discussions would usually bring out these arguments on both sides, partly thanks to our diverse class. Thank you very much. That would be a taste of what we do in our classes. And with that, I'll give the floor back to Lisa.
Great, thanks very much. And if you'd like to keep up to date with what is happening in the centre, you can follow the centre on Twitter and Facebook. The Twitter handle is @NUIGCDLP. And we'll start answering your questions shortly, but if after today you have any other questions, you can email lawpostgrad@nuigalway.ie. And before we start answering questions, so you can start popping your questions into the chat, or you can raise your hand, and once we get to you, you can turn on your microphone. But before, I see we have a couple of questions in. First of all, we have a lovely comment from Liz, who has commented on a graduate of ours, Elizabeth, and who has said it's their dream to one day join NUI Galway. So hopefully we might see you next year. And Liz, you also have another question. If I wish to join in 2022, at which point am I able to know if I have succeeded to join the programme? I'm hoping to target scholarships that are available. I will look at the ones that have been shared. Thank you. So Liz, I'm not too sure if you have applied yet or not, but once you apply and you submit your application, we normally get back to applicants within a few days. Now, for anyone who has recently applied, there was a cyber attack in the university, so there has been a delay in processing applications at the moment, but we're getting back on track in the coming days. So normally once you submit your application, you will normally hear back within a few working days on whether or not your application has been successful. And with just one tip with regard to scholarships, most of the scholarships close around March next year, so it's a good idea to start looking into them now. And I recently checked our scholarship page, and at the moment it has details about last year's scholarships. So that should be updated very soon with scholarships details for next year. But last year's scholarships will be quite similar to the scholarships that are available next year. So that's just one tip on scholarships. And then another question from Paula. I know this year was run remotely. What is the plan for autumn 2022? And that's a great question, Paula. Janos, I'm not too sure if you can answer this one. Has the centre decided yet what the teaching plans are with regards next year to online or in person?
Yes, yes, Lisa. And I actually recognized Paula, who was interested also in our program last year. Paula, we have decided that next year we'll be in class. So we are shifting back to in-class teaching fully. That's the plan. We hope that the pandemic will not get worse. That's what I can tell. So if the government and NUIG permits us, we will have all our teaching in class next year. That's what I can tell. What we don't know is how the healthcare or the pandemic situation develops. So there's a bit of a question mark there. But I think in Ireland, vaccination rates are quite high. So there might be a bit of setback. Currently, we are experimenting a bit of setback with the pandemic, but I'm quite confident that by next summer, it should be all over, and we should go back to normal. That's the hope. May I just add to Lisa's question? Well, not question, but comment that Elizabeth is actually also one of our regular guest lecturers. So if you like her work as a student, you will be able to learn what she's working on now. I remember her lecturing in the inclusive education module and also in contemporary challenges. Some years she's lecturing depending on whether her time allows it. But definitely one way to connect with her or reconnect with her, if you had known her from before, is participating in those modules where she teaches.
Great, thank you. I don't see any more questions. We'll wait another couple of moments, but you can either type them in the chat or, like I said, feel free to turn on your microphone. I might just make sure that I have that setting on that allows you to turn on your microphone in case someone wants to come in.
And while you are thinking, perhaps just a few things to add, how you can imagine the program. So as I mentioned, if you're full-time, you basically take 3 modules in the first semester, 3 modules in the second, and then you write the dissertation. That 3 modules, if you're in-class teaching, that means 1 2-hour class per week. So 3 modules, that's 6 hours, 6 hours of class per week. And I heard various estimations from students how much it takes to prepare for those classes. Of course, it depends on the specific class and the specific module. As a rule of thumb, you could expect 3 times as much preparation time as the class takes. So 6 hours of class time and 18 hours of preparation time, roughly, but maybe less. I think it's less. It's a postgraduate program, which means that most of our students have a clear vision of what they want to do, and they are very determined to study. So we provide a lot of extra resources for students if they want to do reading on their own. Some of them are very interested in specific subjects, so we have required readings, what you do for the class, and then there are supplementary readings which you do on your own if you're interested in that. But definitely the program and the instructors and the other students and the research projects what we run are a good way for you to be involved in those activities related to those topics if you're interested. Let me give you a specific idea. Somebody is very much interested in children's rights, children's capacity. We cover that in some of the modules, but there are extra readings. And if that's what you're interested in, there are other activities in which you can be involved. And of course, then you spend as much time on it as you want, or as much as useful for your future work or career. And I think we have a question. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the LLM and the PhD programs? So the LLM program is 1 year. It's mostly it mostly consists of attending classes, plus there is a dissertation which you write, which is shorter, 50,000 words. So it's mostly studying. The PhD program is longer. It's 4 years, and it is basically independent research. So you have your own dissertation project, research project. You attend a few classes in the first year. There are some mandatory induction classes, plus 30 credits of classes which are specific to independent academic work. So, for example, presenting at conferences, writing research grants, proposals, publishing your work, these kind of things. And then basically you have meetings with your supervisor and you write your research and write your dissertation in 4 years. So it's independent work. Some would say it's quite isolating. What we try to build a community of PhD students. We also have some social events. In the LLM program, you learn mostly from us in 1 year, and that is a degree which allows you to practice in this area. The PhD program is quite academic oriented. People become researchers or university teachers, instructors when they finish that. And it is, of course, much longer, 4 years. I hope that answers the question, but yes, if there are some other aspects you're interested in, then I can clarify.
Great, thanks. I don't see any more questions coming in, so we might just leave it there, and I'll pop an email into the chat, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. If you have questions specifically for Janos, I can forward them on to him. So thanks very much. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, thank you, Lisa. That's what I wanted to say. I hope I will see some of you in the program. And if you have any questions, any specific questions, feel free to write to me anytime, and I will be happy to answer.